It's so wonderful to be back with you. I want to say a big thank you to Myra for holding down the fort. I've heard from all of you that she did an amazing job, and I am not surprised. And, okay, yeah. We're so fortunate to have her here with us. And I just want to thank all of you for giving me that time away. I'm going to tell a little bit of a story about my vacation, and it'll tie into the sermon eventually, you'll see. As I was away this time, I was at the family cabin, completely off the grid. That's why if you texted me or emailed me, I didn't reply, because I couldn't receive it. But while we were there, the air got dry, the wind kicked up, and before we knew it, we were surrounded by 3 fires. Yeah. Wind can carry things a very long way and quickly. One of the fires is still 0% contained and not too far. Actually, the roads are completely closed just a mile down from where our family cabin is. So we had to find different ways to get back home from the cabin. Now, I tell this story not just to sort of tell you where I've been, what's been going on, but also because this concept of wind carrying things quickly is sort of tied into both what James is saying and what Jesus is saying in our scriptures this morning. James is thought to be actually Jesus' brother, and you can sort of hear Jesus in the things that he says. He's talking about you have to internalize what the word means, what the gospel means, what Jesus has taught you. It's not good enough just to say, yeah, I believe in Jesus. We have to internalize it and then behave like Jesus. In fact, in just a few verses after this, he goes on to talk about the tongue. And he basically goes on a diatribe that the tongue can do more harm in the world than almost anything else. That the things that we say, you see the echo in what Jesus is saying, that it's not the things out there that defile us, it's the things that we have in our hearts or that we let out. There is a rabbinic saying about a young man who was having trouble with not speaking ill about his neighbors. And he went to the rabbi and he said, I'm having a hard time with not speaking ill about my neighbors with whom I, disagree or disapprove. And the rabbi says, okay, my child, go and take some goose feathers on a windy day and let them up in the air and come back to me next week. So dutifully, the young man goes and lets the goose feathers into the wind, returns back to the rabbi a week later and says, Rabbi, that didn't help. I'm still having trouble. So he says, oh, okay, we'll do it again. So he does it again. Comes back a week later and says, Rabbi, it's still not working. So the rabbi sends him out one more time. He does it. He comes back, same thing. The rabbi says, okay, now I want you to go and retrieve every goose feather that you let out. The wind had carried it too far. His point being that the things that we say do impact and do carry, right? If we speak ill of our neighbor, someone else may speak ill or think ill, and it goes on and on. It's really about gossip in this case, but it can be about any number of things, that what we let carry our hearts and then let out into the world is out. We've given it to the world to carry to the wind, and who knows where it will go. And so James and Jesus are saying, take care. Take care of what's in your heart. Take care of what you let out into the world because the wind can carry it. It could be something fragrant like flowers, or it could be a wildfire. But take care. Now, there is also, I'm curious if Myra has heard this story too. There is also another story that's similar to this. It's really talking about what's in your heart and how to work on what's in your heart. It's a Cherokee story. You know the story about the grandfather and the grandson and the wolves? No? Okay. So in this story, a grandson goes to his grandfather seeking his wisdom. He says, "Grandfather, I'm filled with anger because there is another boy who has done me an injustice. And I can't seem to let go of my anger." And the grandfather says to his grandson, "Let me tell you a story. I too at times have felt great hate for those that have taken so much, with no sorrow for what they do. But hate wears you down, and hate does not hurt your enemy. Hate is like taking poison and wishing your enemy would die. I have struggled with these feelings many times. It is as if there are two wolves inside me. One wolf is good and does no harm. He lives in harmony with all around him and does not take offense when no offense was intended. He will only fight when it is right to do so in the right way. But the other wolf is full of anger. The littlest thing will set him into a fit of temper. He fights everyone all the time for no reason. He cannot think because his anger and hate are so great. It is helpless anger because his anger will change nothing. Sometimes it is hard to live with these two wolves inside me because both of the wolves try to dominate my spirit." The boy looked intently into his grandfather's eyes and asked, "Which wolf will win, grandfather?" Grandfather smiled and said, "The one I feed." The one you feed. I came across this week a beautiful quote. It is attributed to Sarah Durham Wilson, but it may have been somebody else, and she's just requoting it. It says, "The way you alchemize," so think of alchemy, it's making something out of something that was different, it's transforming it. "The way you alchemize a soulless world into a sacred world." So think about the young boy and how he's had an injustice done to him. "The way you alchemize a soulless world into a sacred world is by treating everyone as if they were sacred until the sacred in them remembers." Not very easy to do, right? Someone reflecting on this quote, and I don't know her last name, it's a blog. She says, she's Courtney, a pint-sized millennial. So that's all I can tell you about what her name is, Courtney, the pint-sized millennial. She was reflecting on this quote, and she said, "This idea speaks to me for so many reasons. It's just the golden rule, but taken a step further. It's saying that we should do unto others as we would like to see done unto ourselves, but also adding the why." Why is an important question in my household, she says. Our son Charlie, in particular, likes to ask it when we make basically any demand of him. "Go put your shoes on." Why? "Stop trying to ride the dog like a horse." Why? If I said to Charlie, "Treat people the way you would like to be treated," I can guarantee he immediately would turn and ask me his favorite question. Why? But if I paraphrase Sarah Wilson's quote into something more child-friendly and tell Charlie, "Treat everyone like they're special, like they matter, because they are special. They do matter," you're helping remind them. Then giving him the rationale right there, and he would do it. She ends up reflecting that she grew up in an Orthodox household and that there is a theological concept, let me see if I can find it in my notes here, called theosis, or that we are able, and James talks about this, the implanting of the word, with God's help to become more Christ-like. Theosis, or deification, the transformation process of becoming closer and closer to God until eventually you're a part of God. You're in the mix of all that God is doing. And she reflects that even though she is no longer Orthodox, that it's a beautiful and mystical belief. And she says, to me, it's another way of expressing the idea that we are all working to transform and be a part of something bigger, whether we call the bigger something God, the universe, or humanity as a whole. But this is a theological concept that, although it has origins in Orthodoxy, is throughout all of Christianity. That with God's help, we can be transformed into the kind of people that look out into the world and don't ask, why should I treat that person who's being rude? As if they are created in the image of God, and instead say, oh, take a deep breath. I'm going to do it anyway, right? I'm going to do it because, in the words of Sarah, that when we do that, we alchemize the world in such a way that people remember that they themselves are holy and sacred and images of God. Bishop Charleston this week had so many reflections that I caught up on when I came back. And I'll sort of end with this as inspiration for us as we attempt to be the kind of people that alchemize a beautiful world, a world that remembers that we are all sacred. He said, all creatures possess a spiritual nature. It locates us in the patterns of creation. It describes our purpose and our being as embodied by the Spirit who made us. All creatures, so he's saying even more than human beings, all creatures have access to spirit, though how is a mystery. Listening is a core practice. It's such a core practice of spiritual life. It is how we cast our nets to gather new insights. And this is what James is speaking about. Be slow to speak. Be quick to listen. See what it is that Spirit might be saying. How we challenge ourselves to see reality from another perspective. It is a gift of fresh ideas. It is going deeper than we first imagined. With practice, we learn to hear what we need to hear, not what we like to hear. And then another reflection, and this one I like because of our psalm. This morning, the psalm speaking of singing to the King. He gets up very early, before sunrise, every morning to pray. And in those moments, he receives gifts from the Spirit, right? He's a listening human, listening for the Spirit all the time. And one morning, in the past 2 weeks, he said, I hear you singing. Imagine he's saying this to you. I hear you singing. As I have so many nights before, I do not know who you are, or where you are, or even why. I hear you, but I do. Out there, in the night, across the vast oceans beneath the moon, I hear you, and I take hope. I know that I am not alone. I pray that you can hear me too. For I am singing, just like you.